Very good to be back here again, talking to you about this big basic payment scheme that have been putting in place all year. The last time I was here, we were talking about how we were going to go about it. I'm glad to say that today we've come a good way through it. We have some challenges, and it hasn't been an easy one to implement. I think I was present at the negotiations in Brussels for this scheme, and the scheme is complex in areas, and mostly for the benefit of the farmer and the benefit of Irish agriculture. That we didn't want a system that was going to drastically change Irish agriculture, which looked like at the start. So so the scheme is thankfully we're getting there. We're actually one of the most successful member states in implementing it. We're way above most of the other member states. I think we're the only member state who actually did an advance payment of the scheme. So I'll take you through it now. Valerie Kerwin is here with me as well. Valerie from the department, I'm sure most of you know very well too. So hopefully we'll clarify any issues that are still remaining with this scheme. Just for a bit on progress to date, we issued a provisional statement of entitlements to all farmers in March 2015, the first time that farmers got to see what the new scheme was going to mean to their individual entitlements. And we invited reviews. In fact, we didn't get as many reviews. We thought an awful lot of farmers would come seeking reviews, but we didn't get as many, but we have some, and we're still having some at the moment coming in on the value, on the number of the entitlements. The advance payments, 70% commenced on the 16th of October, and we paid more than 100,000 farmers on day one. We have paid 114,000 farmers to date. In fact, we're nearly in the same place as we were this time last year with the old scheme. It's just maybe between 1,000 and 2,000 less, and we were 2 weeks later starting. You can remember the application date, the final date for application was brought forward by 2 weeks in order to allow all farmers to apply. So we have 114,000 farmers paid now. And the second instalment, the 27%, is due to commence on the 1st of December. And the final 3% in April 2016. The reason we have to hold back the 3% is because we cannot calculate the definitive value of entitlements for farmers until all applications are processed and all land is in the system. So we have to hold back 3% because there'll be a bit of toing and froing. Some farmers will need more than others, but everyone's application will have to be tweaked. As you know, with this internal convergence program or process, all farmers' entitlements are connected to every other farmer's. So when we issued the provisional statement in March, since then, so many things have happened on, farmers. There has been entitlements transferred in and out, up and down. Then we had to take the lesser of the land from 2013 to 2015. So sometimes the only land that we had to work on the provisional statement was the 13 land. But by the time we're finished, of course, we'll have the 13 and the 15 land. So there's a lot of changes taking place on this database, a huge database of 130,000, 120,000 farmers, somewhere in between those two, including National Reserve, etc. So we have, it's a huge database, and the convergence process goes from 2015 to 2019. So somebody in the department has a very, very big calculator that we hope nothing will ever happen to. The entitlement calculations, as you know, based on 2013 or 15, whichever is the lesser, and then the private contract clause. That has been a major challenge, and the reason really being for the private contract clause, I think all of the challenges of the scheme came together in the private contract clause, because Ireland chose to use the land 2013 or 2015, whichever is the lesser, to avoid major speculation in land, which did happen in member states that didn't use this. But as a result, every parcel of land has to be tracked from 2013 through to 2015, and particularly for any kind of transfer, because private contract clause was the one where this all really came to a head. It's been really, really difficult. The IT people who have been working on it said it's one of the most difficult pieces of programming. It has been really challenging. We're almost there with it. There has been blood, sweat and tears in the department, I needn't tell you, trying to get this one through. But we're nearly there with it now. But it's mostly because every single parcel of land has to be tracked. And as you know, sometimes parcels change identification in the meantime, and everything, had to be tracked to the last. Partnerships has also been a bit of a challenge for the same reasons, and I think partnerships became very popular in the same year as the introduction of the scheme. But of the 800 cases, we've over 600 paid now, and it's mostly the multiple partnership cases that are left. Gift, inheritance, merger and scission, entitlements again follow the land, and all this land tracking through 2013. Most member states didn't use 2013, they only used 2015. So whatever was on the sheet in 2015 was what was included. But when we use both, it made it very complex for us. Now, the thing is too, the letters to the farmers, we can't write, in other years we write to a farmer and we'd say, oh, you're clear and you will get paid. And that was great because it gave, for all of us, it made it easier because the farmer had some realisation or some knowledge of where he was or where she was. But with this new system, we have to calculate everything before we can write a letter, because otherwise we wouldn't be putting anything on the letter. So the private contract clauses are going out early next week, and that's the reason why we couldn't send them out in advance of the payment. I mean, the priority always is really for the farmer to get payment, because I think that is the farmer's priority, absolutely. So the letters are ready to go now, and they'll be going next week. So our current issues really are National Reserve and Young Farmer Scheme. They haven't been paid out yet. 2015 transfers that are still being done, and reviews and force majeure. That's what, apart from the bulk of payments, these are the tasks that we're mostly concentrating on now. And the Young Farmer Scheme and the National Reserve, they're at an advanced stage of processing, and they're due to be paid very shortly. A lot of issues occurred because of the evidence of income and the evidence of education. The evidence of income, many of the young farmers needed to supply information to us, and it was very slow about coming, and some of it is still outstanding. The evidence of education then, we always have had education as a key component of the National Reserve. National Reserve being a scheme that gives entitlements to young farmers, mostly, And so we always in the department, even though it's an objective criteria that member states can apply, but in Ireland we've always applied education, because we've always felt that giving entitlements to young farmers really, and they should be educated, it's really best in the long term. And anyway, they will need the education for other measures like inheritance and things like that anyway. So, but we realised very early on that the huge interest in these schemes was so great that actually we wouldn't have the capacity in our agricultural colleges to train everybody in time for the scheme in 2015, and a lot of them wouldn't qualify because they hadn't completed their education. So in the department we granted a flexibility to allow farmers who started their education by the 30th of September 2016 to qualify in 2015, and this was to include as many as we could. But when we notified the EU Commission of it earlier in the year, we have to notify them all the time of all of the measures that we're implementing. They weren't too happy with the fact that we were going to pay farmers for a scheme in 2015, whereas they hadn't started the agricultural education at that time. If they had started, it would be fine. But if they weren't involved in a course, it didn't fit with what they call the annual logic of the schemes. So we made arrangements with mostly with Teagasc, and we have a lot of work has been done on both sides here to try and facilitate all these young farmers to have an introductory course, to sit one module of an introductory course by the end of the year. So that's in place now, and I think the courses are going to be held in December. And the evidence of income, what do we need? We need a P60 or a P21 if person has more than one income. And for the self-employed, a self-assessment in Form 11, and PAYE and self-employed, both sets of documents. There's a lot of outstanding documentation. That's the bones of what we need. So for any cases that are outstanding, we need all that.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? Yeah, just what about the situation whereby, say, the young farmer was basically just working on the farm, wasn't paid a set wage, and was just basically given pocket money?
Well, there's no off-farm income. On-farm income doesn't count at all. It's just off-farm income.
But then what would you require in that case, so where he doesn't have a P21 or a P60?
He can notify us that we'll need something from social protection to certify that he didn't receive anything from them. It's just a nil return from them, and a statement to say that he doesn't have any income. And provided he didn't get, he has that note from social protection, he's okay. Don't think we need anything from revenue in that case, because the revenue, it wouldn't be necessary. If he had any income at all, we'd need something from revenue. If he makes a statement that he doesn't have any, he just worked on the farm and he has the cert from, we have a note, there's a form on the website to take to the social protection office. They'll send it back immediately and send that in to us. Okay, on-farm income doesn't count. Now, groups and partnerships based on one herd number. This is we need the income for all names on the herd number. This kind of did create a bit of an issue. Initially in the department, we kind of saw partnerships as everybody having a separate herd number, and that some partnerships are like that. But then it doesn't make sense to have all partnerships like that. So maybe a dairy partnership where there's just one set of animals and one yard, etc. So we will allow partnerships with one herd number. But there's an issue here with the National Reserve because of the income clause here. Because in this case, Dad's name, say if it's Dad and Son, which is the usual situation, well, Dad's name will actually be on the cheque, on the National Reserve, on the payment cheque when it goes out, because Dad and Son's names are on the herd number, So Dad is actually a beneficiary from the National Reserve, even though Dad, because the Son's name is on the herd number. But in that situation, we have to take both incomes into account. And Dad doesn't need to have the education, but the income, it wouldn't be fair really to be subjecting all young farmers to off-farm income on their own. But if Dad was in the partnership, that Dad's income wouldn't come into account when Dad's name will be on the payment at the end of the day. We need the documentation for all names, and the thresholds apply there in that case to the herd number. Partnership based on two or more herd numbers, evidence of herd number relevant to applicants. So if there's a partnership with two farmers and the young farmer has his own herd number, we're not one bit interested in what the off-farm income or of the dad is, because the cheque at the end of the payment at the end of the day will be, whereas it'll be going to the partnership, the young farmers' entitlements are separated from the dads. 2015 transfers. These are the areas where that the key issues have been, and for the remaining cases that are outstanding still, these are the areas where there's something outstanding. For changes to a herd number, any change to the farmer between 2013 and 2015, addition of name, removal of name, change in partnership name. Well, the 2015 transfer was required where the transfer happened between 2014 and 2015. But in many cases, the 2013 position came in as well, because the allocation right was established by farmers in 2013. So any change to a holding, change of legal status or merger or scission, these are the real headache cases, because we have to establish, first of all, one of the main cornerstones of the scheme is the 2013 reference year. It's there for everybody, regardless of whether you take 2013, 2015 land into account. The 2013 reference year is there. And, somebody has to have established an allocation right in 2013, and that has to be transferable over in 2015. For inheritance, then, the standard documents that are required are the will and the probate or letters of administration. And a 2015 waiver must include the transfer of both land and allocation right. The Commission specified that for inheritance that happened between 2013 or 2015, that the entitlements had to travel with the land in that case. And whereas up to then you've all got used to the system of the entitlements being possibly in the estate and not necessarily connected with the land, sometimes being in the residue. Between 2013 and 2015, and the entitlements and land were stuck together. Now, 2016 transfers, that application is not there yet. In previous years, we had the application for the following year on the website as soon as 1 year closed. But the 2016 transfers is just not up there yet. We're actually there's just too much going on. And, the closing date won't be until the 15th of May 2016. And where we appreciate it's handy for some people to fill them up during the year, it will be in place hopefully by the end of the year, sometime in December, or if not early January, we'll have it up on the website anyway. Big change in 2016, for the first time there's an option to lease entitlements without land. There's a lot of inquiries about this. This wasn't there before. There was only the option to lease entitlements with land. Now entitlements can be leased with or without land. Now there's a 50% clawback on the sale of entitlements without land in 2016. This is primarily, to prevent people will get, full value entitlements from the National Reserve, sometimes on large numbers of hectares, and to protect the integrity of the entitlements, this is in the regulation that there's a 50% clawback. Member States can introduce a clawback on the sale of entitlements without land. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the choice to say this is just for National Reserve entitlements. The regulation only allows the clawback to be there or not to be there. So it is there. It's really, really necessary. But we can review it then in 2017.
Sorry, did that include then transfers, when the sales, does it include transfers?
With sale of entitlements without land. That's the only category. Any sale of entitlements with land, or a lease of entitlements, or inheritance gift, no. Just sale of entitlements without land. Just the one category. It's just just that one category. Yes. Okay.
Sale of entitlements received from the National Reserve only, or all entitlements?
No, that's what I was saying. Lots of people have said that to us. But it's the regulation only allows a member state to impose this or not to, or to have this stipulation or not to have it. We can't say do it just for National Reserve entitlements. Any entitlements transferred without land in 2016 will be subject to clawback.
And that's definitely, if you gift entitlements, they're not subject
No,
to 50%
no,
clawback.
no, just sale.
And is it on the value of the entitlements or the number of entitlements?
It's on the number of entitlements.
So if you sell 30 entitlements, the receiver only gets 15.
That's it. Yeah. The entitlements that are lost through this will be put back into the reserve, and they'll be redistributed among other young farmers or whatever.
The value remains the same.
The value remains the same. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
If the value of the entitlement is from now on the value of the basic payment entitlement, which is equivalent to about 7% of single payment entitlement. That value excluding the green.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it'll be, the value each year will change according to the convergence path that, some will be increasing and some will be decreasing, but it'll be 70% and then the greening, 30%.
Is there a National Reserve application in 2016?
There will be, there will, well, we're almost sure there will be, yeah. It'll depend on funding, but we are at this point, we're kind of confident that there will be enough there maybe for young farmers, for 2016. But it's not definite yet until the calculations of how much is going to be spent in 2015. But indications are that there will be. Okay. All right, I'll stay going. Scottish derogation, then we had 3,500 applications and no maximum threshold on hectares. starts very low, but it increases then up to 60% of the national average by 2019. Evidence of farming activity. Ireland kind of fought quite hard for this measure, because there were farmers who had been farming in 2013 who had been, having cattle and sheep, etc., but they never ever held entitlements. So we succeeded in persuading the Commission that this was a viable scheme for Ireland. About 2,000 of them have been paid now. There are kind of two categories of them. There's the main category of them were farmers who sent in a basic payment scheme or a single payment scheme application in 2013, and on that, and because they were applying for the disadvantaged areas, for example, and because they were in the disadvantaged areas, we knew they were active farmers because they had to have a stocking rate, so they came in automatically. But then there were people who didn't apply in 2013 at all, and if they sent us in the evidence of production, and we could include them in a slightly different category. We had to kind of route them through the National Reserve in order to comply with the regulation. So that category aren't paid yet because the National Reserve is not paid yet, but a good lot of them are. Okay, so we have review and force majeure cases on hand as well. They must relate to the incorrect calculation of entitlements. A lot of people sent in reviews for different reasons, but in many cases, maybe their information that they thought they had, was kind of different. But then some of them have been genuine, and we have had to change their records, or they have. Well, it's not we've had to change their records because something that they did hadn't been included, or there had been some issue that they hadn't notified us of, for example. Land under review, inheritance gift not complete. Most applications relate to incomplete processing, maybe. There could have been something back from a previous scheme year that the farmer was actually, had sent in appeals on, had sent in additional information on, and was being clarified, and things like that. There's a lot of kind of cleaning up, bits of anomalies. Naturally enough, you're taking a scheme that includes so much detail between 2013, 2014 and 2015, and all the ducks have to be in a row, absolutely, and I'll tell you there's a lot of them with some of these applications. Force majeure, we have some cases force majeure too, maybe the farmer in 2013, for example, had to lease out the land because of illness and now is back farming again, for example. So there is provisions there for force majeure. There's always really, I'm sure you know this, in a case of really severe hardship and, where farmers, things happen on farms that are completely outside the farmer's control, it's always worth running by us in the department, because I'm sure you always do anyway, but we do have some scope for force majeure. We do come across some really tragic cases, as you do yourselves, and we really do try in these force majeure circumstances, if there's medical evidence there, or if there's evidence of death and things like that, the regulations will allow us to look at those cases a bit more leniently and see what we can do. And finally, in 2016, there's no rotation of entitlements. This is really important to understand this. It won't really matter in 2016, but it will matter in 2017. In previous years, if a farmer had 100 entitlements and only 50 hectares of land, he never lost any entitlements, because each year the entitlements were rotated. 150 it happened automatically behind the scenes. Nobody had to apply for it or anything. It just happened, because we were allowed to rotate the entitlements, But there is no rotation of entitlements under this regulation. We tried to get it in, but no. A lot of member states actually didn't want it, because it ended up with unused funds, because there are entitlements rolling around in the system and the money never is drawn down by the member state, but the farmer doesn't lose the entitlements. Some member states actually didn't want rotation anymore. There is no rotation. So if the farmer doesn't use all his entitlements, 1 out of 2 years they are lost to the National Reserve. So for 2016 it'll be fine because it's year 2. But really for 2017 it will be an issue. And for 2016, farmers, everybody needs to become aware of this, the fact that rotation is gone, because I really do know that there'll be many, many farmers will lose entitlements and they won't realise. They'll think the thing was the same as before, but it's not. the convergence path is fixed even if transferred. I told you about this huge big calculator where we have everybody's entitlements on it. Every farmer is on this, has a path of convergence. And when the definitive value of entitlements is given to all farmers in March 2016, every farmer will have their path then for their entitlements. And if their entitlements are transferred out or anything, that path will stay the same. So this is really important. This is why the convergence path being established and being definitively established in March 2016 is very important, because we will, farmers will have certainty of where they are then between 2015 and 2019. There's no consolidation in this regime at all. So if land is lost, farmers will have more entitlements than land if they didn't transfer the entitlements with the land. But remember that for the first time they have the option to lease the entitlements without land. So they can keep leasing them out, and then they won't be lost, or they won't go back into the National Reserve. They will be used by somebody else. And they have the option then to sell them, of course, if they want as well. But they have, there won't be consolidation. The final statement of entitlements is due in March 2016, and by then we have to have all processing done. That's a big challenge for us really in the department, because there's always so many difficult cases, and cases maybe that involve inheritance and will, and that drag on and on and on and on. But we really will have to try and get 99.9% of them, because every time we change one farmer's entitlements, the whole graph for everybody's entitlements, changes very slightly. And almost finished now, and then I'll take the question. All right, yeah. The Young Farmer Scheme will operate from 2015 to 2019. Somebody asked about the National Reserve. With the National Reserve, after 2015, it's dependent on funding being in the reserve. Funding will come in through the sale of entitlements without land. It'll come in through farmers who lose entitlements because of rotation, non-rotation, and it'll be lost into the reserve. And then I think there will be a little bit left over after 2015. But we're dependent for the National Reserve. But the Young Farmer Scheme is a different pot of money. The Young Farmer Scheme is guaranteed for farmers for the first 5 years. So farmers who started in 2015 and who are getting the Young Farmer top-up are guaranteed it each year. That money is set aside. So it will operate from 2015 to 2019, and we'll have more young farmers coming in 2016, and we'll have some young farmers falling off in 2016. So it'll be like that up until 2019. And the National Reserve then is dependent on the funding, as I just said. Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernie.